We're with John Cassidy talking about his involvement in the late 70s with Friends of the River and publishing Headwaters and being involved in campaigns. You became the editor of Headwaters in 1978. How did you get there, and what was that experience about?
78. I'm sure I was talking with Mark in a room full of FOR types. The newsletter, Friends of the Rivers newsletter, Headwaters, had been launched maybe a year and a half before, something like that. It was meant to be a bi-monthly. In any event, Kathy Myers was the first editor. I knew Kathy, but only a little bit. But she was at the end of 78, somewhere in 78. She was moving on to her next chapter, whatever that was. And there was a whole editorial position available, highly paid. And I just so happens that it was at the same time I'd learned a little bit about graphic design and so forth, because it was at that time that I was starting Klutz Press, and I think I just finished putting together a book on juggling, learning how you put ink on paper and make it printable, and fundamental graphics 101. Anyway, based on that enormous experience, I raised my hand and got the job. I was so excited. I haven't applied many times for jobs in my life, so it's nice to those few times to get the win. Anyway, so I started the editorial process there. In fact, I remember going off and buying a camera, my first camera purchase. If you gave me a few days or weeks, I could find that camera somewhere in this house. Anyway, learned a lot journalistically, wrote a lot of the articles, interviewed a lot of the players. I have a few copies right here. These are collector items now. Here we go. And if you come by the house, I can show them to you, but I believe they're already archived on the Stanislaus.org. In any event,
So you did all of that out of your house in Palo Alto.
correct.
You were just, it wasn't like there was a Friends of the River office. This was just John Cassidy working at home,
Yeah.
putting stuff out.
They call it desktop publishing now, but back then it was desktop publishing. Just that these days the notion has been corrupted. It was all being done on a tabletop with glue, and you'd have to look at them, galleys, and cut and paste. The expression cut and paste, that's what we did, cut and paste, because it was cutting, it was pasting. Now, of course, it's just a metaphor. Anyway, I did that, and 2 or 3 years, some highlights, photographs, interviews. I learned how to ask a few people questions that made them uncomfortable. I'd never done that before, certainly not deliberately, and that was an interesting, we'll call it, piece of personal growth.
So while you were editor, this is kind of a crux time for the Stanislaus, because there's efforts to get federal wild and scenic protection in the late 70s. And then in the mid 1979, the reservoir starts to creep up into the river. And all of a sudden there are massive protests, including Mark and others chaining themselves to force the Army Corps to stop filling the reservoir. The witness and encampment takes place, in which people gather to witness the river being flooded down below Parrott's Ferry.
Right.
Other thoughts about how you were involved in any of those efforts, the lobbying and the other parts?
A little blurry. I spent a lot of time in Sacramento talking to people who probably didn't listen too much to me, but it was always in connection with FOR activities. I remember being on the stand, taking photographs of the encampment, and at one point, as we watched the old bridge at Parrott's Ferry go underwater, this is a bridge that we'd known for more than a few years, and to watch it drown, and to watch the canyon drown, of course, it's very emotional. All of us bonded with the canyon. That's why we were there. The bond with that piece of river was remarkably emotional. We still have that bond. That's where my ashes are going, according to my wishes. And upstream of the reservoir. And then 42. What was the name of the?
HR 4223 was the first bill from Pete Stark, and then later Congressman Philip Burton incorporated that into his omnibus rivers bill, HR 8096. That was in late 79, early 80 to mid 80. So you were, at this time, you were pretty much just volunteering for FOR. You were getting paid some very modest amount to help edit Headwaters, I suspect, but it's not like you were some full-time staffer with a big salary.
Oh, no. If it was any salary, it was negligible. I doubt that was anything. No, it was all labor of love.
Labor of love.
And it was actually in this house that we're sitting in right now. Believe it or not, I'm still in the same house. You can call that stable, or you can call that inert. But here I am. I might, for all I know, be sitting in the same room. I can't remember that. But in any event, yeah, it took place out of the house, and then you jump in the van and drive to the river on days and weekends, depending. And now you're going to ask me, who did I hand it off to, the responsibilities? And I'm going to say, I don't remember exactly.
So I think Alexander Gagin picked up a few of them, and then I think it evolved into different people for then. Because after the Stanislaus was flooded, Headwaters had kind of there was a time of refocusing, and even the later Headwaters tended to have lots of articles about other rivers than the Stanislaus,
Right.
even as you were the editor. There were a lot of other rivers that Friends of the River was fighting for.
Right.
And the Stan was still the centerpiece, but sometimes there were big other issues
Right.
that you covered.
We spent a lot of time on the North American. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on North Fork of the American River. There was a dam proposed in the area. I guess they called it the Auburn Dam, although I don't think it was. I guess it was near the town of Auburn. In any event, that project there hadn't been any ground broken on that project. And so FOR, and I played some small role, were active in the effort to keep that one unfunded, which we did, by the way.
It's successful to this day.
Yeah, the Auburn Dam is still not there.